Welcome everyone to Contrast Labs Weekly number 5. Today we have with us Adam, Dan, and Sarah and myself, kind of the Contrast Labs crew. And we wanted to dig right in and talk about a recent blog that Adam wrote about CTFs and training and gamification and security awareness and how to kind of make it fun. And we'll kind of dig into some of the different types of CTFs and talk through some of the ways to create them and importance of knowing audiences and stuff. So I'm going to hand it over to Adam to just kind of talk about at a high level, why CTFs, why gamification, what does that do for security awareness and making it fun?
Thanks, David. I have a recent blog about basically how to create a CTF and how to create security awareness through gamification using CTFs, and we'll make sure to link that in the description. But one of the things that before I joined Contrast Security, I was a part of an internal application security team. And one of the responsibilities that we had was to train all the other developers in the company. And if you've been around in the software industry at all, you know that the old axiom that software is eating the world is coming true. Every company is now a software company. So I was working for a large corporation with about 3,000 people, and this corporation did a lot of acquisitions, and so we'd often acquire development teams or new products. And that really made it rough on the internal application security team, especially finding a good way to standardize training across all different time zones. And one of the things that I came up with was that we could create a 24-hour CTF contest, a capture the flag contest. When I was in college, I joined a security team for my college where we actually participated in CTFs. And they're a ton of fun. For those of you that don't know, a CTF is a capture the flag event. There's two main types. There's the Jeopardy capture the flag event and the attack defend capture the flag event. The Jeopardy style is just like it sounds. It's a Jeopardy board. You have categories, and then you have challenges in ascending difficulty and point order. So a typical challenge might be a web challenge or a data challenge or a reversing challenge, and they step up in difficulty as they go. So that was something that really interested me because I thought we could get a lot of a wide breadth of knowledge, and then you could accomplish a good depth in each category as well. The attack defend CTF that is popular, and one of the more famous examples is the DEF CON CTF. It's where teams get together and they have to maintain services, and they can attack each other's services to bring them down or up. And you get points throughout the event based on how long your services are up, based on other tasks that you have to do during the event. But that didn't fit my model for training, right? For training, we wanted people to get the experience of attacking something. We wanted to put them in the eyes of a bad actor, and start to think like a malicious user, and what could a malicious user do? Because once you have that experience, you can start to think about that when you're developing your own code. You can start to think like, hey, I should probably sanitize this input, because a malicious user could send in a string that's not intended. And then that'll get passed through various, other mechanisms. So our goal was to use the Jeopardy style CTF to provide a large breadth and depth of knowledge, and then work with the development teams as they participated. So in my blog, I talk about how to create a CTF and how to create a CTF for basically training purposes. First thing I talk about is I think it's important to know your audience, to know who you're writing the CTF for. Are you writing it for a bunch of developers who are interested in learning security? Are you writing it for a bunch of savvy developers who know a little bit about security, especially in their own code base, but don't know a ton? Or are you writing it for information security professionals? Each of these categories is going to basically tell you how you should write your CTF. I've participated in and helped build, I think, 9 CTFs at this point. So I'm pretty well versed in writing a CTF and creating the categories and the challenges that go along with it. And in my experience, knowing your audience is the very first thing that you should consider when creating a CTF.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Adam. I think it's really, really important to make sure that you're not creating a CTF that is so terribly challenging for everyone, that could be trying to participate in it, that there's lessons or there's challenges for every type of individual. The one we did for all of contrast engineering this year, I thought we set up really, really well, where we had a lot of, easier challenges in all the different category areas, but also some really, really difficult ones that really required, engineering effort, writing code to really figure out how to dig into what the challenge was. So knowing your audience is definitely important. Not everything is going to be a DEF CON style CTF where everything is extremely difficult, because you're not going to get the participation that you want out of it, right? Because people feel like, oh, well, I don't know it. It's going to take me too long to learn it. I don't want to participate.
Well, and to your point on the attack defend style CTFs or events, CCDC, the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition, is another event that's run with a similar structure. But I particularly think they're very fun from an offense perspective, but inevitably to structure the event in that way, a certain subset of the group has to do pure defense. So you really don't get to do the attacking or the red team activities if you're trying to defend the network, unless you do something like, we got to split up and we're attacking and defending the other team and they're also attacking and defending us, but everybody's still kind of got their own roles and responsibilities, and you don't get to kind of spread out quite as much, right? And get as much breadth of coverage, as you said, in learning different skills and getting to experiment and toy with different stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I was a huge fan of the CDC events when I was in college. They were fun, but they were pretty focused, at least on my side, for the blue teaming. I know that Dan is a red teamer at heart. So
one thing that's interesting with those competitions is having roles on the blue teams, at least, that are more accessible to non super tech savvy and folks, right? That aren't low level in the bytecode, reverse engineering and running exploit tools and stuff like that, in the form of business injects or tasks that you have to complete throughout the competition, right? The CEO said you need to install and make some new software available or something like that. I always find it difficult in the Jeopardy style events designing challenges that hit that kind of middle sweet spot of it not extremely easy and not extremely hard, but having some type of middle ground. So I'd be interested if you have any thoughts on that, since I think we've all kind of written quite a few CTF challenges as well.
Yeah, that's for me, writing a good challenge is probably the hardest part of the CTF, and I think I even called that out in that blog post. But when I write challenges, I like to think of a story, right? I like to tell a story. So like you said, the new CEO wants you to stand up the software in an attack defense scenario. You have to have a blue team member being ready to, take a task and run with it. In a Jeopardy style CTF, the story can really help you understand the purpose, right? if a administrator is using some sort of service and you don't know where the flag is, a good idea is, well, there's an admin, so I need to figure out how to get the admin credentials because the admin probably has access to the flag. So it's a good way to tell a story. Generally, what I like to do, Dan, is I like to write the challenges I think would be fun or make sense. So I say like, I identify a category, and there's a lot of different categories. Some are more accessible than others. For example, web can be pretty accessible because everyone uses websites, whereas cryptography might be a little less accessible because maybe not everyone has taken the high-level math required for some of the cryptography challenges. But select my category and then select maybe a vulnerability or an exploit that I thought was fun throughout the year and replicate it. And then generally I like to lay out the challenges that I've created, and then only then start determining which one's harder than the others. Like, does this take 3 or 4 steps? Does this, is this one a pretty easy one if you have a certain exploit available? So I like to solicit feedback from the other team members I'm working with in creating this to determine difficulty. But generally I write to the, I like creating a challenge to the actual like vulnerability or exploit that I thought was, interesting or that I thought was important that somebody learn.
Yeah, in terms
I
of
think
making it accessible, I think one that you did really well for the last challenge we ran was in the form of like a crossword puzzle where there was some, things that you could go and research, and like you could go find the answers, and it wasn't necessarily like a hacking challenge, but in order to get the key to submit for that challenge, you had to fill out the whole crossword puzzle. One that I tried to do in a similar vein of making accessible was writing a gambling game that there were some cryptography vulnerabilities in, so you could exploit it that way, or you could just try really hard to play it and beat the game on your own, which is probably unrealistic, but it's still trying to make it like fun for people that didn't quite understand the challenge or couldn't get all the way there.
Yeah.
I think the key that you said as well, Adam, was make it fun, but also make it based on some of your experiences throughout the year, right? Like, don't make it so like esoteric or crazy that it's never going to happen. A lot of these challenges we're creating because it's things we've seen or uncovered, or there's a known CVE for this specific framework, with a known POC, right? And utilizing that, and it gets people to think kind of outside the box. And like I think it was the Google CTF last year that we participated in, and it was using like the Gunicorn web server, which accepted both JSON and XML, and you could just switch the payloads based on that. And the initial request from the site was JSON, but we had to switch it to XML to exploit the XXE that it was vulnerable to, right? So it's things like that, like real world things that actually happen. I think that really provide that context and the learning experience while they're having fun doing it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to both your points is to provide the real world example, but also make something that's accessible for somebody who's just a novice. Dan mentioned the crossword puzzle. We also did a regex crossword puzzle. So those are great for people who aren't super technical yet and want to learn. But like David said, the most important thing is to make it like real. I've been in CTFs before where the IDA Pro control graph, if you scrolled out enough, that was the flag. And that's such a not realistic challenge in my mind. Like you're given a binary and then you open it up in a reversing tool, and unless it's IDA Pro, the control graph doesn't do anything for you. So you have to open it up in a specific dissembler, and then you see a bunch of random crap and jumps and moves into different controls, and you have to scroll out to like view a flag. Like to me, that's something that's pretty unrealistic. Whereas a challenge like David mentioned, or a specific CVE that had a POC throughout the year, that's something that's real life and really happens. And I think that really lends itself to your competitors feeling more respected, right? If you're trying to make your competitors guess what you're thinking, they're going to be upset.
Yeah, I kind of like Sarah's experience here. I think was it last year, Sarah? You participated in like kind of your first CTF and you got a challenge coin, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, Bayside Belfast, which unfortunately
Yeah.
doesn't happen this year, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I only started CTS really hard when Adam brought them to contrast, really. One thing I'd say for novices or people starting out, as well as practicing CTFs online, go to GitHub, go to the write-ups, because those is what really help you. There's one answer for the flag, but there's multiple ways people will work to get there. So that's been one of the most helpful things, and you'll find a zillion tools to get that answer there. So keep looking around.
Sarah, that's a great point. We have a CTF team on CTF time, and most of these challenges are listed there, ctftime.org. So you can find upcoming CTFs. The number one best way to learn how to CTF, like Sarah said, is after the conclusion to go check for the write-ups. And people post them. We post write-ups. And they'll post write-ups of how they solved the challenge. And you could see like, oh, damn, I was so close, or oh, man, I was so far off base. But it's the best way to learn how to
If
solve
only I'd looked at the IDA call graph.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
So no, I think that's right. And it's crazy how detailed some of those write-ups are. Like, I feel like some people have just as much fun writing up their solutions as they did figuring it out in the first place, right? So
Even
go ahead.
I would say even our internal, we had people coming to us and just saying, oh man, that's how you did it, or just getting frustrated, and they had this really detailed, and it wasn't that detailed. You didn't need to go that far, but it was interesting how they were trying to work things out as well.
Yeah, and as someone who's written a bunch of challenges too, like there are so many times where someone solved it in a way that I never would have thought of, right?
Right.
That's my favorite.
So Adam, one other thing in your blog that I don't think we've really touched on that was really interesting to me is, why is picking a theme important?
Well, so it might sound unimportant at first, but when you can kind of develop a theme, it makes it more fun for the competitors. In addition to, it allows your challenge writers to tell a story. And like I alluded to earlier, telling a story is important in a CTF. It allows you to frame the challenge in a way that there's a good guy and a bad guy, or a purpose or a goal of the challenge. If you don't have any sort of goal, and if you just stand up a website and with no detail, it really makes it hard for your competitors to learn anything, except that they can just spam a bunch of stuff into the website until they figure out, what's the purpose of this challenge. So, if for example, if you just stood up a website and you didn't say anything about it, as a competitor, I might run some Dirtbuster tools, and look for directories or hidden pages. I would try to spider the website, and that's just like a huge waste of time and resources. If you can give them some sort of direction to start with, like, oh, hey, there's an admin page. Or there's an administrator, and so now I can focus all my efforts on that. And instead of running a bunch of requests on your site, which you're hosting, and so if you have every competitor running massive scanning tools against your site, like, that's going to be expensive, or it's going to slow down the site, and you don't want that. So I think picking a theme allows people to allows people to basically create a story. And I think stories and challenges are important. Some popular themes have been like Jurassic Park or the one that we did here at Contrast Security for our internal team was Back to the Future. So, you know, we had good guys and bad guys. In Jurassic Park, we had Nedry, the character who stole the dinosaur DNA. And then in Back to the Future, we had Biff, you know, and I know Dan made some killer Biff challenges. Like, oh, was it Biff MySpace page?
So much Biff.
Yeah, but it's
game.
Yeah, it's fun though, because it makes the challenges more fun for your competitors. It makes them memorable, right? If a challenge isn't memorable, like that's not gonna stick with somebody. You want them to learn the concept.
Yeah, the theme is fun. It makes it more realistic, trying to like model something like a real page or a real app, a real site, something like that. And, you know, just having it be themed and fun adds to the gamification, right? Like you actually, if I can make somebody laugh while they're, you know, learning something at the same time, it's fun for me, and like it's more enjoyable, you know, to hack on.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely hate the wild needle in a haystack type stuff too, like the look at the IDA Pro graphs type stuff, because it's like show me something that somebody has actually used to like hack into a computer, and then that makes me happy.
Yeah, I think, you know, HackerOne does a pretty good job with the way that they do kind of their CTF stuff. So if you're a bug hunter for HackerOne, they have kind of a CTF, which helps them kind of for programs that are looking for specific types of people that are really good at XSS or whatever else. But they've split it out, so like they pretty much tell you the vulnerability is this. Here's the website or whatever it is, and then you go find it. So at least you know at a high level what kind of thing you're looking for. So, you know, it's just anything you can do to help but not give it away is always going to benefit the overall success. And when I talk about success, like Adam, I kind of wanted like what would you call a success for a CTF? Like what criteria shows you that it was a success?
Well, yeah, that's a good question, because your success is dictated again by your audience. Are you writing a CTF for a conference for a bunch of information security professionals, or in our case, the Back to the Future CTF was for our own employees, our internal employees. Like one of the successes as an internal CTF is that interaction, that face-to-face time with, you know, a bunch of people participating that you don't get on a day-to-day basis, you know, and you're able to have fun with Dan's MySpace Biff challenge. Like he's able to like talk to people and they're able to tell him, oh my God, that was hilarious. I haven't seen MySpace since 2008, you know, and they're able to chat with Dan about, hey, that was a great challenge. Or in Sarah's case, where somebody's coming up to Sarah and saying like, hey, I heard you wrote this challenge. I'm struggling with it. Like, can you give me a hint, or can you help me figure out, like, this is the path I'm taking. So in that regard, I think it's a success just to get that interaction. There's another level to that too, right? If we're the internal team for the people participating, we're their resource, right? And so I think it's important to also demonstrate an expertise, right? We understand what we're doing. We understand, you know, how this is a security vulnerability. We understand how this can be exploited, and you might be struggling with it, but we can fully walk you through it. And so that's another win in my book. The internal CTFs are much easier to identify wins. If you're talking with people, you're getting to know people that you work with, that you know have only ever talked to, you know, over Slack, or just about like through tickets or through emails. Now you're face to face. You're talking with them. You're getting to know their experiences, their strong suits, and then it's another win to demonstrate the team's expertise, and then another win if the people have fun and learn something. So that's easy to identify the wins. It's a little more difficult with the conference type of CTF. I think that I've discussed KernelCon before. I ran a CTF for KernelCon this year, and I thought it was a success because we did a survey after the fact, and 20% of the respondents said that the CTF was their favorite thing about the conference. So that was the second highest rating besides the talks. And so I thought that was a major success, that people were enjoying it that way. So, and participation level is a good way to measure success as well. So.
Awesome. Well, guys, I appreciate everyone's time today. I think it was a good chat on CTFs. Definitely check out Adam's blog. We're all on Twitter and all that too. So, feel free to reach out to us. You can see our handles in the details. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
The 0-day heat will spray, clear the way if their log file touch. Get your hard line cut. Number 2, never let them know your next move. Don't you know bad boys moving silence and pirate taken from your wireless? I done flashed mad chips with these hacks just to patch these bits. Number 3, never trust nobody. IRC is bad.